My spouse and mother-in-law used to converse in their native language, so I recorded them, translated the conversations, and uncovered a shocking truth that changed everything. My wife and I got married 2 months ago, both coming from different cultures and ethnicities. In her culture, it's normal to live with parents after marriage. We had discussed moving in with her parents after the wedding, but I wasn't comfortable with the idea. Born and raised in the U.S. My parents moved here at 20 to pursue their dreams. At 19, I moved out, and they supported my decision. So, I expressed my discomfort about living with my in-laws. She responded that it was an essential part of her heritage. I said I respected our cultural differences but wouldn't compromise on this matter. I wanted privacy and had visited her apartment, realizing we couldn't all fit there. At that moment, I assumed her parents lived with her. She had hinted at it, saying she grew up in this country. Eventually, we reached an agreement, and she asked me to try it for a few months. If I remained uncomfortable, we would move out, so I agreed. Our wedding ceremony was small but beautiful. After marrying, I moved into her apartment, and her family was extremely kind. I didn't feel anything was wrong. Her mother and she frequently conversed in their native language, sparking my curiosity. I asked her to teach me, but she refused, saying it wasn't necessary. I told her I wanted to be part of their conversations, but she still wouldn't teach me. Over time, I took some online classes, but was still learning, only understanding a few phrases and words. My wife and I had been married for a month and a half, and my mother-in-law kept telling her to do it. That was the only phrase I understood when I looked at her. She would smile at me uncomfortably. I felt something was off and questioned her, but she always evaded, saying she'd tell me later. As days passed, my mother-in-law appeared increasingly anxious. When I tried asking her, she gave no answer. I was fed up. We hadn't even gone on a honeymoon. I wanted to travel abroad, but she adamantly refused, citing work commitments or similar excuses. One day I spoke with a colleague from the same country as my wife, though I'd never heard her speak her native language. Casually, I asked if she spoke the language, and she said yes. I requested her help in translating some phrases, and she agreed, admitting it wasn't right, but offering to record them. I had lived with them for nearly 2 months and disliked being excluded from their conversations. I knew something was happening and was determined to uncover what it was. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My colleague translated the secret recordings I had made of conversations between my wife and mother-in-law. With each word, my heart sank deeper. These weren't just daily chats about future plans. It was something far darker, something unimaginable. My wife and mother-in-law were plotting to use me. I was merely a means to an end. Apparently, my mother-in-law was deeply indebted, and my wife, who had grown up here but maintained strong cultural ties, had been pressured to find a solution. Me. They needed someone to support them financially, to pay off family debts and ensure a comfortable life. I was the perfect target, a naive American, passionate and willing to do anything for the woman he loved. But there was more, much more. My mother-in-law was ill, something I never knew. She required expensive treatment, and my wife had agreed to marry me to ensure I would cover all expenses. They laughed in the recordings, mocking my naivety. My wife remarked how easy it was to manipulate me, believing everything she said, and my mother-in-law responded, approving her choice, calling me weak but wealthy. I felt betrayed in a way I never imagined possible. Everything we had built together, every shared moment, every promise made, was a sham. I was just a pawn in their game, and the worst part was that I had genuinely fallen in love with her. I had trusted her, opened my heart and life to her, and she had used it against me. I didn't know what to do. My initial reaction was pure rage. I wanted to confront her immediately, expose her lies, and make it clear I wasn't the fool she thought I was. But something inside me made me pause. I needed to think calmly, plan my next move. If she was playing a game with me, I would play too and fight to win. In the following days, nothing seemed to change. I continued acting happy and carefree, even showing more interest in learning her language, just to keep her unsuspecting. My wife seemed surprised but pleased with my new attitude, unaware that I knew the truth. Meanwhile, I began planning my retaliation. First, I needed to secure my financial stability. I had deposited a significant amount into a joint account with my wife, but now I knew I couldn't trust her. Slowly, I started transferring money back to my personal account, making excuses about investments and unexpected expenses. She suspected nothing. Then, I began gathering evidence, recording more conversations, taking photos of documents, and even following my wife during some outings. I discovered she was in contact with a lawyer, likely planning how to leave me in the worst possible situation if I uncovered the truth. I also found she had a secret bank account where she stored money I had given her for household expenses. Over time, I gathered everything I needed. It was time to act. One night after dinner, I sat with her in the living room, calm but resolute. She seemed relaxed, unaware of what was about to happen. "We need to talk," I said, looking directly into her eyes. She frowned, but agreed. "Sure, what's wrong?" I took out my phone and began playing the recordings. Her expression changed instantly. She paled, and I could see fear in her eyes. "What is this?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "This is you and your mother plotting to use me," I responded firmly. "I know everything about the debts, your mother's illness, the fact that you only married me for money." She tried to deny it, but I continued. "Lying won't help. I have proof of everything. Recordings, documents, photos. I know about your secret bank account and your plans to leave me in the worst situation possible." She began to cry, but I felt no sympathy. In a way I never thought possible, she had used my love and trust against me, and now she would pay for it. I explained I had already consulted a lawyer and was prepared to take the case to court. I had all the necessary evidence to ensure she and her mother wouldn't receive a penny from me. Additionally, I was ready to expose their deception to all our friends and acquaintances. She begged for forgiveness, claiming desperation and lack of options, but I was done listening to excuses. I had been deceived, betrayed, and humiliated, and now it was my turn to take control. In the following days, I moved to a hotel and initiated divorce proceedings. My lawyer ensured I was protected in every aspect, and I cut off all contact with her and her family. I also exposed the truth to our mutual friends, ensuring no one else fell into her trap. It was a difficult period, but I knew I had done the right thing. I had freed myself from a toxic and manipulative relationship and was now free to start anew. Years later, looking back, I see this experience taught me a valuable lesson. I learned the importance of trusting my instincts and never underestimating the power of truth. I also learned that no matter how painful betrayal may be, there is always a way to rise and move forward. Today, I am in a much better place. I found someone who truly loves and respects me, and I'm grateful for having had the strength to leave behind what was not good for me. Revenge may have been sweet, but the true victory was finding the peace and happiness I deserved. I watched her sobbing in front of me, trying to convince me it was all a big misunderstanding. But I felt nothing but disdain. Every tear seemed rehearsed, every word empty. I wanted her to know how much she had lost and that she would no longer have any power over me. "You betrayed me," I said firmly, "and I will never forget it. But now it's my turn." That night, before going to bed, she tried to approach me, attempting to act as if we were still a couple, but I pushed her away with a single look. "Don't touch me," I murmured. We slept in the same bed, but it was the last time. I was determined to act the next day. Without saying a word, I called my lawyer and explained the situation. He was surprised by the level of manipulation and advised me on how to proceed. I contacted the bank to block any movement in the joint account that might still be active. I wasn't going to let a single cent fall into her hands or her mother's. I also transferred all assets in my name to a protected trust. It was the first step to ensure I exited this situation without losing anything. Meanwhile, I continued pretending for days, acting as if everything was fine, even showing a bit of false affection to keep her unsuspecting. She seemed to start believing I was considering forgiving her, but secretly, I relished every detail of my plan. A week later, it all began at work. I requested leave to resolve some personal matters and used that time to gather all necessary documents to finalize the relationship. I hired private investigators to uncover more about her and her mother's machinations. I wanted to ensure nothing was left to chance, and then the day came. I arrived home earlier than usual, all documents in hand. She was sitting on the couch, checking her phone when she saw me. She smiled as if nothing had happened. "Hello, dear," she said, but the sound of those words made my blood boil. "We need to talk," I said, placing the documents on the table. She looked confused, and I saw the moment she realized. She began trembling, trying to grab the documents, but I pulled them away. "These are the divorce papers," I continued calmly. "I suggest you sign them without inventing excuses because there's no way out." She began pleading, fake tears streaming down her face. "Please listen to me. I love you. I only did this because I was desperate. My mother needed help." "Shut up," I interrupted coldly. "There's no love here. You never loved me. You used me, and now you'll pay for it." She tried to argue, but I placed my phone on the table and hit play. The recordings began, each word exposing the plan she and her mother had concocted. I watched panic seize her as she heard her own voice revealing how easy it was to manipulate me and how weak I was. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I continued, "and you knew that if I found out, everything would collapse. Well, here we are." She stayed silent for a moment before finally breaking down. "And what do you want me to do now? Leave and let my mother die? Do you think you're better than me?" I laughed bitterly. "It's not my job to save your mother, and certainly not my job to support both of you while you laugh at me behind my back." I stood up and collected the documents. I had already taken all necessary precautions. "You and your mother will receive nothing from me. I've already informed the bank, the police, and my lawyer. By the way, you have until the end of the week to vacate this apartment. It's now in my name." She was in shock, but I wasn't finished. "And one more thing. All our acquaintances, all your friends, will know who you really are. I'll make sure no one else falls into the same trap I did." That night I packed my belongings and moved to a hotel. I didn't want to spend another second in that house. She called dozens of times, but I blocked her number. My decision was final. In the following days, I finalized the divorce. My lawyer informed me that with all the evidence I had gathered, she had no way to contest anything. Meanwhile, I anonymously posted the recordings on forums and social media. They were well known in social circles, but after I exposed the truth, the reaction was devastating for them. Friends and family began to distance themselves, and rumors started to spread. In the end, they were left alone exactly as they deserved. My ex-mother-in-law had to sell what little she owned to pay off some of the debts, and my ex-wife tried her best to rebuild her life. But the damage was already done. No one trusted them anymore. As for me, I started over. I moved to a new city and bought a new apartment. Today, for the first time in months, I felt peace. Looking back, I realized that the greatest revenge was reclaiming my life and letting them sink in the mess they created. They tried to destroy me, but in the end, they were destroyed by their own choices, and I moved forward, stronger than ever.